Hi, I'm Don Ferguson, the producer of Florida Keys Dive Odyssey, the video series that unveils the actual GPS coordinates of the top dive sites in the Florida Keys. Be sure to watch Volume 2 of this series, which features the top 110 dive sites in the Florida Keys and the GPS coordinates for each site. Here is a preview of some of the action-packed dive sites you'll see in Volume 2. Welcome to Volume 1 of the series, Galleon Hunter. As a wildcat dive guide in the Florida Keys, I have located and dived over 150 sites from Key Largo to Key West. A few years ago, I went to see my friend Jim Klupper, the branch manager of the Alamorada Public Library. Knowing my interest in shipwreck history, Jim shared a vast trove of information on the Spanish 1733 plate fleet wreck sites with me. I found the idea of locating and diving a vessel that sank 262 years ago interesting. Armed with Jim's information and a copy of a 1733 shipwreck chart, I headed out to find the wreck site of the San Felipe, nicknamed El Larry, somewhere offshore Lower Matacumbe Key. With the proper coordinates, a GPS will guide the navigator within a few hundred feet of his desired target, thus greatly reducing the search time necessary to locate a wreck site. When I first began my search for the Larry, I had no GPS numbers. I didn't even own a GPS. I only knew that somewhere, close to 1 mile offshore Money Beach near mile marker 75 on Lower Matacumbe Key, in a 16-foot deep sand pocket on the inshore edge of Hawk Channel, were the remains of a 500-ton galleon that I was determined to find. For almost a week, I searched for a needle in a haystack. Day after day, I moved from sand pocket to sand pocket, looking for a dark gray discoloration in the water. Poor visibility often complicated the search. Each failure made me even more determined to find this wreck. Finally, one morning, the incoming tide brought good visibility to the area. Suddenly, there she was. I passed right over her. The depth gauge was reading 16 feet.
17. That's it, right there.
El Larry. On the deck of the boat, it was June 1994. But it was if I had passed through time by swimming down to the wreck. Here it will always be July 15th, 1733, the day El Larry went down in a hurricane. What a thrill it was to find this time capsule of history. During the next year, my friends and I located and dived 15 wreck sites associated with the 1733 plate fleet. Before we dive these historic shipwrecks, let's go back in time for a brief history of the ill-fated 1733 Spanish Armada. It is the 12th day of July, 1733, in the harbor of Havana, Cuba, almost 6 weeks into the hurricane season. The docks are teeming with activity as soldiers, officers, and loading crews ready the fleet. After more than 3 months of delays, the Armada has sailing orders for tomorrow. Over 20 galleons, merchant naos, and smaller ships of Spain's combined treasure fleets crowd the docks and ride at anchor in the bay. The holds of these ships contain 12.4 million pesos in gold and silver, millions more in general cargo, and an untold amount of contraband, carefully concealed to avoid paying the quinto, a 20% tax imposed by King Philip IV on any gold or silver brought to Spain from the New World. Many of these vessels are less than seaworthy and are receiving frantic last-minute repairs for their imminent departure. At 6 a.m. on Friday the 13th, 1733, the Armada casts off on the new moon, one ship every 15 minutes with the outgoing tide. One by one, over 20 ships begin their date with destiny, inching into the turquoise waters of the Caribbean. The sound of booming cannon reverberates from the ramparts of Havana's Morro Castle, saluting the ill-fated fleet. Less than 900 miles away, a tropical storm is headed northwest toward the unsuspecting vessels. For the rest of the day, the Armada enjoys steady breezes. Lumbering along at 4 miles an hour, the helmsmen guide their vessels into the Straits of Florida and the northbound current of the Gulf Stream. Throughout the night, the fleet makes headway with fair weather. At 10 o'clock a.m. on the second day, July the 14th, a lookout sights land. They are 20 miles southwest of present-day Sombrero Reef. The brilliant sunshine does not portend the hurricane, which is now roaring through the Bahamas, a scant 300 miles away from the helpless fleet. At 4 o'clock p.m., dark cloud masses begin to gather in the southeast. The wind changes direction, now coming in from the east, gradually increasing in velocity. The Lieutenant General of the fleet, Don Rodrigo de Torres, expresses his concern to the pilot and helmsman. Angry ocean swells grow deeper, causing the vessels to pitch and roll. De Torres signals the fleet to return to Havana, but it is too late. By nightfall, the hurricane enters the Straits of Florida, headed directly for the doomed Armada. Sheets of rain pound the decks as the howling 110-mile-per-hour gale-force winds overtake the fleet. Seamen scurry up the ratlines to take in sail, thus easing the strain on masts and crossmembers. Cascading swells of 20-foot seas blast across the decks of the helpless vessels. By dawn of the 15th of July, the ships are totally at the mercy of the wind and waves. One after another, these ungainly leviathans plow violently into the shallow white water, only to have their hulls ripped open by the dragon's teeth of reefs surrounding the Florida Keys. The Spanish nicknamed the Florida Keys Los Martires, or the Martyrs, a fitting name for the survivors of this disaster as well. Scores of people sink beneath the foaming surf, while others struggle to shore only to find near 100-degree heat, swarms of mosquitoes, and a lack of fresh water and food. All in all, 20 major ships were wrecked, disabled, or lost. Remains of the Armada are visible from present-day East Washerwoman Shoal just off Marathon in the Middle Keys, up to the waters near Pacific Reef in the Upper Keys, a distance of almost 80 statute miles. Within 1 week after the storm, 9 vessels leave Havana with wreckers, 40 salvage divers, and a detachment of militia to distribute supplies and lend aid to the survivors. A Spanish ship comes down from St. Augustine and assigns a number to each wreck sighted. Moving from the north to the southwest following the Keys, the position of 19 wrecks are charted. As salvage operations proceed, the names of the vessels are assigned to the numbers. The Spanish salvors managed to refloat several of the ships. The rest of the vessels are burned to the waterline at low tide. This allows sunlight into the holds to facilitate salvage. For over 2 years, divers recover gold, silver, and other treasure from the wreck sites. When the final count is made, the wrecks have given up more treasure than was on the original manifests, of course due to the smuggled contraband aboard the ships. Finally, the Spanish abandoned the wreck sites, leaving the timbers and ballast to become one with the sea. Now, let's dive the wreck sites. I'm heading out of Garden Cove, near mile marker 106 in Upper Key Largo, with my friend Stefan Sakura. Stefan is a brilliant navigator, a renowned treasure salver, and as a shipwreck historian, he is a true genius. Stefan transforms himself into the minds of ancient mariners to unlock secrets of the past. We are heading to a wreck site 1.4 miles, 247 degrees southwest from Pacific Light in the waters of Biscayne National Park, about 19 miles northeast of Key Largo. Just for the record, all of the mileage in this video is quoted in statute miles. It's a short 50-minute trip up to Pacific Reef. The Bureau of Underwater Archaeology in Tallahassee lists this site as 8MO147, Nuestra Senora del Populo, which is Spanish for Our Lady of the People, number 1 on the old chart. Stefan and I do not believe this wreck site is the remains of El Populo for 3 reasons. First of all, El Populo was a 14-gun Guerra, a speedy lookout battleship about 80 feet long, weighing less than 175 tons. The ballast of this wreck site is 90 feet long, indicating a ship somewhat larger than El Populo. Second, from Jack Haskin's translation of the 1733 Fleet Commander de Torres' diary, dated July 31st, 1733, I learned that El Populo was aground with her decks awash near the head of the Keys. This wreck site is 30 feet deep. El Populo would have been completely submerged in 30 feet of water, not aground with her decks awash. And finally, the vessel Aviso Dolores was listed in de Torres' diary as afloat without mainmast or rudder, just to the south of the grounded Populo. Irreparably crippled and stranded from deep water by the surrounding shoals, the Spanish probably burned the vessel. The original salvors of this wreck site in 1966 reported massive charcoal in the ballast, indicating a ship that was burned with much wood above the waterline, or a vessel afloat like El Aviso. However, 8 cannon were found on the wreck site. This 90-pound bronze cannon was the most spectacular gun recovered. Called a steenstuk, which means stone thrower in Dutch, this cannon bears a foundry mark of Amsterdam, Holland. Why would the Spanish leave valuable armaments aboard a ship destined to be scuttled? That doesn't make sense. Nonetheless, from the evidence gathered, I'm listing this site as the wreck of El Aviso Dolores del Consulado. She was a 110-foot transatlantic dispatcher advice boat built in Cadiz, Spain, weighing about 200 tons. She was captained by Don Pedro Arambide. Her main function was carrying messages between the ships of the fleet, and her primary cargo was tobacco. She was listed as number 2 on the old chart. El Aviso's GPS coordinates are latitude 25 degrees, 21.852 minutes north, longitude 080 degrees, 09.690 minutes west. The remains of El Populo are probably situated a few miles to the north, near Ajax Reef. Let's hit the water and check out the wreck site. Heading down the anchor line, I estimate the visibility on this site to be over 100 feet today. El Aviso's remains lie next to a beautiful oval patch reef no greater than 300 feet in diameter. The reef rises from a sand bottom of 30 feet deep to within 18 feet of the ocean's surface and supports an incredibly diverse population of marine life. Here are 3 of her exposed timbers. Fused together, these round Portuguese river rock ballast stones make a home for colorful clown wrasse and bluehead wrasse. Without ballast, these top-heavy ships would have rolled over in light winds. As I glide over the wreck, I remember the words of a friend. Beneath the sea lies yesterday, today, and tomorrow. How true these words are. Past a metal stake to the east lies another small ballast mound. A two-tone damselfish protects his territory. As I prepare to leave the hallowed gravesite of this ancient ship, I feel fortunate to have shared the secret and beauty of her final resting place. The original salvors of this wreck worked for over 2 years on the site. Although no major treasure was discovered, some interesting artifacts were recovered. The most outstanding of which was this pillar dollar, one of the first coins made in a screw press in the New World. The F denotes the assayer, the 8 means 8 real. Bearing a 1732 date and the OM Mexico City mint mark, this is truly a magnificent coin. I recall that it took Stefan and I over 4 hours to find El Aviso a few years ago. Today, with GPS technology, we found the wreck, dived it, and arrived back at Garden Cove in time for lunch. My next destination, Key Largo Harbor, is 7 miles south of Garden Cove on the Overseas Highway. I'm heading out with my friend Mick O'Connor. After a quick 11-mile trip to the southwest to Little Conch Reef, we arrive at our next dive site, number 3 on the old chart. Named Nuestra Senora de Balvaneda, which means Our Lady of Balvaneda in Spanish. She was nicknamed El Infante, or the Prince. El Infante was a king's galleon, captained by Don Domingo de Lance. El Infante weighed 326 tons and was a formidable battleship with over 40 cannon. She was built in Genoa, Italy in 1724. El Infante's GPS coordinates are latitude 24 degrees 56.575 minutes north, longitude 080 degrees 28.537 minutes west. Florida wreck site number 8MO092, she lies in 12 feet of normally gin-clear water on Little Conch Reef, near an area known as Fire Coral Shoal. As I descend on the remains of El Infante, her ribs and scattered ballast are silent testimony to her violent grounding. As one of the giants of the 1733 fleet, El Infante carried over 5 million pesos of the king's treasure. Her cargo included cochineal, a red dye prepared from dried insects, indigo, vanilla, and ceramic plates, jars, and jugs. Most of her passengers were saved. She was well salvaged by the Spanish in 1734. Hundreds of wrasse, goatfish, and damselfish now inhabit the site. In the early 1950s, Art McKee rediscovered the remains of El Infante. Since then, this site has rapidly deteriorated due to pressures of human visitation and natural wave action. At one time, the ballast of this wreck was over 100 feet long and 7 feet tall. Her remains are now a beautiful sight for snorkelers as well as divers. Our next wreck site is number 4 on the old chart. San Jose y Las Animas, or St. Joseph and the Souls, had 2 nicknames, San Jose and El Conde, or the Count. Florida wreck site 8MO101, San Jose is situated near latitude 24 degrees 56.890 minutes north and longitude 080 degrees 29.360 minutes west. This is an approximate location, not GPS coordinates. She is located about 1 mile, 290 degrees to the northwest of El Infante. Situated in water 30 feet deep and completely covered with 3 to 4 feet of sand, the San Jose is an uninteresting dive site. San Jose was built in the New England colonies in 1728. Weighing 326 tons, she was owned by Don Joseph del Duque and captained by Don Cristobal Fernandez Franco. San Jose carried 30,435 pesos in silver specie and bullion, as well as sugar, chocolate, indigo, animal hides, ceramics, and assorted drugs, including tobacco and cocoa leaves. Tom Gurr rediscovered the San Jose in 1968. His recoveries are at the Florida State Bureau of Archaeological Research, located in the Gray Building on Bruno Street in Tallahassee. A few of the artifacts include old keys, a musket firing mechanism, and the skull of an unfortunate passenger who did not survive the disaster. Our next wreck site, number 5 on the old chart, is La Capitana. Her remains lie completely covered by sand in 20 feet of water, about 1 mile west of Davis Reef Light. Florida wreck site 8MO146. The GPS coordinates of La Capitana are latitude 24 degrees 55.483 minutes north, longitude 080 degrees 30.875 minutes west. Like the San Jose, La Capitana is completely covered by sand, so there is very little to see. Only the tips of several of her timbers and a few random ballast stones are visible, amid scattered potholes from recent legitimate salvage activities. Far more interesting than the wreck site is the history of this once proud vessel. La Capitana was named El Ruby Segundo, or the Second Ruby. Built in 1730 in Havana, Cuba, she was the newest vessel in the 1733 Armada. This 60-gun, 500-ton ship was property of the king. Captained by the Lieutenant General of the fleet, Don Rodrigo de Torres, this vessel carried over 225 passengers, as well as the treasurer of the squadron, Don Balthazar de Torre. La Capitana carried 104 castellanos in gold ingots, 3,200 pesos in gold specie, 5,080,285 pesos in silver specie in bullion, and 6,099 marcos in silver ingots, most of which was salvaged by the Spanish in 1734. In 1938, commercial fisherman Reggie Roberts brought hard hat diver Art McKee to a mound of round river rock 120 feet long, over 50 feet wide, and 6 feet tall near Davis Reef. Cannon, deadeyes, and other coral-encrusted artifacts dotted the ballast. Ship's timbers jutted out of the mound in several areas. After correspondence with Spain's Archive of the Indies in Seville, McKee received a copy of an old chart depicting the locations of the 1733 shipwrecks. This chart led Art to believe he had rediscovered El Ruby Segundo, La Capitana of the 1733 fleet. Art worked this mound tirelessly for the next 10 years, recovering thousands of silver coins and a gold escudo dated 1721. Art recovered so many silver bars during this period that he got the nickname Silver Bar McKee. Art was a genius at understanding the old Spanish chart. Using a compass and a sextant like the Spanish mariners who preceded him, Art relocated the San Pedro and El Infante of the 1733 fleet, recovering innumerable artifacts from these wreck sites as well. In 1949, Art built a museum on Plantation Key to display the treasures he had recovered during his explorations. He spent the rest of his life educating the world about the Spanish treasure fleets. Art took thousands of people to La Capitana site in his glass-bottom boat. Although Art McKee passed away on June 26, 1980, his legend will live on forever. Every modern treasure salver and wreck diver owes a debt of gratitude to Art Silverbar McKee, the grandfather of treasure diving. Art's daughter, Karen McKee, will be joining me for a 2-wreck dive later in the show. The building that housed the original McKee's Museum is now called Treasure Village, a collection of retail shops located on Plantation Key near mile marker 87. The 20-foot Capitana anchor Art recovered still graces the front of the building. Joe Kimball's Maritime Museum in Key Largo has several impressive recoveries from McKee's Galleon, La Capitana. Famous treasure salver Jack Haskins recovered this outstanding medallion from the sand near the wreck site. This beautiful artifact, more than likely the possession of a high-ranking official in the Catholic Church, has been valued at over $500,000. Here, my dive buddy Mick O'Connor displays a beautiful rosary he discovered near La Capitana site on January 17, 1995. Mick was with Don Washington and Joe Kimball, who are part of the group that holds the salvage lease to La Capitana site. Somewhere in time, another superb shipwreck museum is located in Islamorada. Owner Dick Holt has an outstanding collection of artifacts from the 1733 fleet, including this intact olive jar from La Capitana. Other Capitana artifacts include a fid which was used for splicing line, a musket ball mold, an incendiary spike shot which was wrapped in tar, lit, and then fired at enemy vessels, a belt buckle fused to a ballast stone. This is a sounding lead used to check depth. Grease was put in the hole to gather a sample of the bottom, thus indicating the composition of the ocean floor. The navigational dividers once used by the pilot of La Capitana. These small signal cannons were used to send messages to other ships in the form of smoke signals. I've enjoyed diving with Mick today. We're heading into Key Largo Harbor. Back on the Highway of Paradise, I'm heading south to Islamorada. The Dive Odyssey continues tomorrow. A new day finds me easing under the Snake Creek Bridge. Snake Creek separates Windley Key from Plantation Key in Upper Islamorada near mile marker 86. I pick up speed heading out of Snake Creek to the site of our next shipwreck, the Chavez. Number 6 on the old chart, she was nicknamed after her owner and captain, Don Antonio de Chavez. Her proper name was Nuestra Señora del Carmen, San Antonio de Padua y las Animas, or Our Lady of the Carmen, St. Anthony of Padua, and the Saints. The Chavez was an Italian-built ship. She was a 221-ton merchant nao and a consort to our next shipwreck, the Herrera. Her crew and passengers were saved. The Chavez is located 500 yards, 208 degrees from the Snake Creek headpin in a 9-foot deep sand pocket surrounded by turtle grass. Florida wreck site 8MO102. Her GPS coordinates are latitude 24 degrees, 56.180 minutes north, longitude 080 degrees, 35.006 minutes west. One of the closest wreck sites to shore, she was well salvaged by the Spanish following the disaster. The Chavez carried pewterware, julep, vanilla, Mexican ceramics, wooden tubs and crates, jars of balm, and Chinese paving stones. There was no registered treasure on her manifest. Her gravesite is now home to a variety of fish, including grunts, juvenile angelfish, tangs, and triggerfish. Visibility here is generally limited due to the shallow depth and proximity to the shore. Here is one of her cannon displayed at Whale Harbor Inn on Upper Matacumbe Key near Whale Harbor Channel. The Chavez is an easy site to find, especially for first-time galleon hunters. The next site on the old chart, number 7, La Balandra que va a la Florida, was a situado or supply ship bound for St. Augustine. This vessel has never been found by modern salvors. She was either refloated, dismantled, or her remains lie buried in the flats near Whale Harbor Channel. I'm heading to the next wreck site, the Herrera. Number 8 on the old chart, the Herrera is about 2.5 miles from the Chavez. This wreck is nicknamed after her owner and captain, Don Luis de Herrera. Her proper name is Nuestra Senora de Belém y San Antonio de Padua. The Herrera is located approximately 2 miles, 175 degrees southeast of the Whale Harbor Channel headpin. I'll locate her in a sand pocket completely surrounded by turtle and manatee grass on the seaward side of Hawk Channel with a water depth of 18 feet. Florida wreck site 8MO090, the GPS location of the Herrera is latitude 24 degrees, 54.338 minutes north, longitude 080 degrees, 35.526 minutes west. The Herrera was an English-built 264.5-ton merchant nao. Her manifest listed 12,000 pesos in silver specie and bullion, 359 marcos in silver ingots, animal hides, king-si porcelain, and ceramic bowls and jugs. The Herrera was nicknamed the figurine wreck by modern salvors because of the hundreds of small carved figures of Mayan origin found on the site. Today, her anchor, a few cannon, and some chain may be found in front of the Whale Harbor Inn. These amazingly well-preserved shoe insoles were recovered from deep within the Herrera's ballast. I'm approaching the wreck site now. There she is. Since the Herrera is in the only sand pocket in a grassy area, she is another easy wreck to find. Visibility is usually good here, since the wreck is several miles from shore. Today I have over 60 feet of visibility. A large school of gray grunts patrol the scattered ballast. This beautiful anemone is home to a small school of juvenile tomtate. Several juvenile drums flit through the ballast mound. A piece of metal refuse houses several interesting occupants, including numerous baby lobster. This anemone coexists with the lobster and several peppermint shrimp. The Herrera is a wonderful dive site. The next site on the old chart is number 9, Nuestra Señora de Belém y San Juan Bautista. She was nicknamed the Tres Puentes, or the Three Decks. Florida Wreck Site 8MO177, the Trace is located somewhere close to 1 mile, 130 degrees southeast of the Herrera. I looked for the Trace, but I found nothing but sand and grass. A couple of years ago, I met a guy in an Islamorada honky-tonk that claimed to have found this golden goose 15 years ago in the general vicinity of the Trace. This goose has over 4 ounces of gold in its tail. This 962-ounce contraband silver bar was found near the goose. There are no markings to indicate payment of the king's 20% tax. For the next wreck site, I'm going south on the Overseas Highway through Islamorada to the lower tip of Upper Matacumbe Key. I'm heading out of T-Table Key Channel with my friend Doug Bontrager of Fort Lauderdale. Next on the old chart, number 10, Nuestra Señora del Rosario y Santo Domingo, was nicknamed Merguia, the last name of the owner. This ship was refloated shortly after the hurricane. The next target is number 11, San Pedro, which means St. Peter in Spanish. San Pedro is the first of 6 wreck sites located in a 14-mile stretch that I call Galleon Alley. San Pedro was a Dutch-built 287-ton merchant nao. She was owned by Don Gaspar de la Herrera Verdugo and captained by Don Gaspar Lopez de Gonzalez. Her cargo included thousands of 1 real cob coins dated from 1731 to 1733. She carried 16,000 pesos in silver specie and bullion, along with a cargo of sugar, indigo, hides, vanilla, cocoa, tobacco, and Chinese Qingsai Dynasty porcelain, similar to this beautiful piece. This jar and many other fine shipwreck artifacts are on display at the Museum of Florida History in Tallahassee. Well salvaged by the Spanish in 1734, San Pedro was rediscovered by Art McKee in the early 1950s. This vintage footage was shot on her ballast less than 2 weeks after Art located her remains. San Pedro lies 1 1/4 miles almost due south of the dock on Indian Key. She's in a sand pocket surrounded by turtle grass in 18 feet of water on the inside edge of Hawk Channel. San Pedro Wreck Site is a state underwater archaeological preserve with mooring buoys to accommodate 6 dive boats. Florida Wreck Site 8MO104, her GPS coordinates are latitude 24 degrees 51.776 minutes north, longitude 080 degrees 40.782 minutes west. San Pedro Underwater Archaeological Preserve was dedicated in April of 1989. This 700-pound limestone plaque near the stern or seaward portion of the ballast identifies this wreck. 7 concrete replicas of Spanish cannon have been placed around the ballast to add authenticity to the site. An anchor of unknown origin, probably from the early 1800s, marks the shoreward end of the ballast, or the bow of the ship. San Pedro site offers a great variety of small aquatic life, including silversides, herring, and tomtates. A beautiful spotted moray eel greets me at the entrance to his lair. This large black grouper eyes me suspiciously before departing amid a school of blue-striped grunt and several porkfish. San Pedro Underwater Archaeological Preserve is an ideal site for underwater photography. My next destination is mile marker 73 on Lower Matacumbe Key near Matacumbe Harbor. I'm heading out to the next wreck site, the San Felipe, nicknamed El Larry. The second shipwreck in Galleon Alley, El Larry is number 12 on the old chart. She is about 2.3 miles, 220 degrees to the southwest from San Pedro. The San Felipe, or St. Philip, is Florida wreck site 8MO133. Her GPS coordinates are latitude 24 degrees, 50.753 minutes north, longitude 080 degrees, 42.867 minutes west. She's in a sand pocket in 16 feet of water, 1 mile from shore. The land bearings are 3 Norfolk pine trees. Align the middle pine tree on the right quadrant of the light-colored roof. The middle pine tree is about 325 degrees from El Larry. Today I have such great visibility, I can see the sand pocket from 40 yards away. When anchoring on any of these historic wreck sites, I always drop anchor in sand downwind and down current from the ballast. This way, if the anchor drags, it will not damage the wreck site. El Larry was an English-built merchant nao of over 500 tons. American elm wood was used in her rigging components. She was over 100 feet long and 30 feet wide. El Larry was owned by Guillermo Terry and the Marqués de Canada Garcia Baquero. Her nickname, El Larry, came from the owner's last name, Terry. Her captain, Don Joseph Villar y Andrade, was in charge of 13 officers, 100 sailors, 7 pages, and a mostly organic cargo with some silver specie and gold bullion. Most of her passengers survived the disaster, and she was thoroughly salvaged by the Spanish. All of the 1733 shipwrecks have been heavily impacted by modern salvage efforts, with virtually their entire ballast mounds disturbed. El Larry, however, has the most intact ballast mound of any of the 1733 wreck sites. El Larry is situated perpendicular to shore. The seaward portion of the ballast covering the bow of the ship is a solid mound of round Portuguese river rock, 50 feet long and 5 to 6 feet tall. The shoreward portion of the ballast covering the ship's stern is over 40 feet long, yet only 2 feet tall, indicating extensive modern salvage. As one of Florida's oldest artificial reefs, El Larry supports a diverse living marine community. A black grouper darts out of his hiding place. Here's a pair of beautiful French angelfish. Near the bow area, one can generally find a school of Atlantic spadefish on patrol. On several occasions, I have waited patiently near the bow of El Larry and been approached by a school of curious look-downs. A school of these comical-looking, blunt-headed members of the jack family is truly an awesome sight to behold. El Larry is my favorite wreck site of the 1733 fleet. I'm coming back for a night dive. The 20-foot anchor of El Larry stands in front of Cobra Marine on Snake Creek. El Larry was a big ship, and she had an impressive anchor. As the sun descends over Lower Matacumbe Key, I prepare for the night dive. Descending into the inky blackness, the adventure begins. The tide is coming in. The visibility is great. The intact ballast mound of El Larry is even more impressive at night. I've spotted some movement over in the sand halo perimeter of the wreck. A spiny lobster scurries across the sea floor on some unknown mission. This beautiful white speckled hermit crab doesn't quite understand what these bright lights are doing in his nighttime world. This unusual looking creature is a Gulf flounder. Notice the two eyes on the top of his head. This batwing coral crab has a small hermit crab in his clutches. This milk conch is moving laboriously over the sea floor. Her eyes peek out just under the shell. I've turned her over. Her green head identifies her as a milk conch. Watch her right herself. My air is running low. Time passes quickly on a night dive. I don't want to leave, but it's time to head in. The Dive Odyssey continues tomorrow. A new day finds me crossing the majestic Channel 5 bridge, heading south on the overseas highway. I'm heading to Fiesta Key, near mile marker 70, to meet my dive buddy, Karen McKee. Karen and I are heading out to a pair of nearby wrecks in the heart of Galleon Alley. Karen owns and operates McKee Museum at mile marker 90 in Tavernier, carrying on her father's tradition of shipwreck education. McKee Museum sells fine jewelry, carefully designed after authentic shipwreck artifacts by outstanding craftsmen. The museum also displays many interesting artifacts from Florida Keys shipwrecks. The next wreck on the old chart is number 13, El Gran Poder de Dios y Santa Ana, or the Great Power of God and St. Anne. Karen and I are heading out to our first dive site, the Craig Wreck, in between Channel 2 and Channel 5, 1 mile offshore of Craig Key. Many people believe that the Craig Wreck is number 14 on the old chart, the San Francisco de Assis. That's what I thought until my friend Stefan Sakura enlightened me to other possibilities. The salvage divers who explored this wreck some 30 years ago studied the ship's timbers beneath the ballast and determined that the Craig wreck drifted aground rather than smashed aground. If this wreck were part of the 1733 fleet, she would have smashed aground from the violent seas. It seems highly possible that this ship arrived immediately after the hurricane to assist in salvaging the 1733 fleet. The Craig wreck is another shipwreck mystery of the ill-fated 1733 Armada. We're approaching the site now. Florida wreck site 8MO116. The GPS coordinates of the Craig wreck are latitude 24 degrees 49.194 minutes north, longitude 080 degrees 45.427 minutes west. Unfortunately, today is a school day, or Karen's son Terry Ballard would be with us. At the age of 7, Terry is the world's youngest wreck diver. Karen dives with a hooker rig, just like her father Art. Karen quickly finds a West Indian sea egg. This odd-looking creature is a member of the sea urchin family. This is a slate pencil urchin living next to a small growth of finger coral. Karen points out 2 beautiful gray angelfish and a striped parrotfish. Like most of the 1733 wreck sites, the Craig wreck is alive with tiny schoolies. Karen has spotted the shyest resident of the Craig wreck, a 15-pound red grouper. Karen looks underneath the ballast mound to try and get a peek at our elusive friend. Situated in water only 8 feet deep, it's about 330 degrees from the Craig wreck to the eastern end of the Channel 5 bridge. Easy to locate, the Craig wreck is a perfect site for snorkelers as well as divers. Visibility here is generally good. We're heading over to Channel 5 near Long Key Point. Our next destination, the Cannonball wreck, is only a 1-mile, 220-degree skip from the Craig wreck. The Florida Bureau of Archaeological Research lists this site as 8MO091, San Francisco de Assis, an English-built vessel of 264 tons, owned and piloted by Don Cristobal de Urquijo. She was number 14 on the old chart. However, I'm not sure this wreck site isn't the remains of number 15 on the old chart, La Almiranta, the vice flagship of the 1733 fleet and one of the King's galleons. Her proper name was Nuestra Senora de Balvaneda, and she was nicknamed El Gallo Indiana, or Cock of the Indies. In front of Calusa Cove Resort stands a gigantic 20-foot galleon anchor that was reportedly recovered from this wreck site. This anchor is definitely big enough to be that of the 500-ton, 60-gun La Almiranta. In addition, this is an immense ballast mound with some of the largest individual stones I've encountered on any of the 1733 wreck sites. The San Francisco weighed 264 tons. This ballast mound could be the gravesite of a much larger vessel. The GPS coordinates for the Cannonball wreck are latitude 24 degrees 48.619 minutes north, longitude 080 degrees 45.932 minutes west. From the wreck site, it's about 272 degrees west to the large radar tower on the seaward side of Long Key. I also line up the red Channel 5 marker with a 6 concrete bridge support from the west end of the new Channel 5 bridge. The bridge support is about 340 degrees from the wreck site. Visibility on this site is generally poor, especially when the outgoing tide brings the cloudy, sediment-laden waters of the Gulf of Mexico through Channel 5. Nonetheless, Karen and I plow through the murky water to the wreck site. Locals have always called this site the Cannonball Wreck, due to the cannonball conglomerate strewn over the area. The numerous depressions in the conglomerate once held 9, 12, and 18-pound cannonballs. Several of the cannon in front of Colusa Cove Resort were reportedly salvaged from this site. These cannon are called 9-pounders because they fired 9-pound projectiles. Cannons of this era generally weighed about 250 pounds per pound of shot fired. Located in 12 feet of water near Channel 5, this wreck site can be a tough dive. Poor visibility, coupled with unpredictable currents, warrant the respect of all navigators and divers. As always, I've had a great time diving with my friend Karen. After taking Karen back to Fiesta Key, I head down to the city of Layton on Long Key, Florida. I'm meeting my friends Stefan Sakura and Dan Baker for a 2-wreck adventure. We're going to the last 2 wreck sites in Galleon Alley. The first target, number 16 on the old chart, Nuestra Senora de las Angustias y San Rafael, was nicknamed El Charanguero Grande, or the large coastal trader. She was an English-built vessel of 328 tons, carrying bullion, specie, worked silver, and Chinese porcelain, along with dyes, spices, and other organic cargo from the New World. She was owned by Don Joseph Sanchez de Madrid and piloted by Don Francisco Sanchez de Madrid.
Well, give me about...
Las Angustias lies 800 yards seaward of the Long Key Viaduct, near the middle of Long Key Channel in 9 feet of water.
I need to go to west. Stay the line and I'm going to see it.
Visibility is always poor on this site, but Stefan puts us right on top of the wreck by first lining the 16th power line pole from the west end of Long Key on the old bridge arch with 2 blue squares.
Okay. We're slowly drifting there. We're slowly drifting there. We're slowly drifting there. And hold it. Arch. That's
Then,
the 65.
Stefan positions the old sweat bank marker out in the Gulf on the inside edge of the second arch to the west of the 17th power pole from the west end of Long Key.
And the horizon. Right. That's the marker. That must be firing 7.
Florida wreck site 8MO131, her GPS coordinates are latitude 24 degrees, 47.442 minutes north, longitude 080 degrees, 51.739 minutes west. Due to the 3-knot current of the ingoing and outgoing tide, Las Angustias may only be visited at slack periods of high tide or low tide. As an extra precaution, I double the length of the tagline behind the boat to 200 feet. Consistently miserable visibility and strong currents make this site a difficult dive. This is a massive wreck site with 3 distinct ballast heaps in an area about 100 feet long by 40 feet wide. Las Angustias is home to an incredible number of fish of every variety. Even in water with the visibility of split pea soup, the copious amount of sea life is apparent. A beautiful southern ray glides past me. Dozens of gray angelfish guard this sunken tomb. This ship's name, Las Angustias, means the anguish in Spanish. Diving on this gloomy wreck site with less than 5 feet of visibility is an eerie sensation. I can almost see the ghosts of all the people who lost their lives when these vessels went down 262 years ago. Slack tide lasts a little less than 1 hour. I can feel the current of the outgoing tide getting stronger. It's time to head back to the boat. Las Angustias was rediscovered by Jack Haskins and Dick McAllister in 1972. We're heading down to the last wreck site in Galleon Alley, about 2 miles, 240 degrees to the southwest of Las Angustias. Number 17 on the old chart, her proper name was Nuestra Senora del Rosario, San Antonio y San Vicente Ferrer, or Our Lady of the Rosary, St. Anthony and St. Vincent Ferrer. Her nickname was El Sueco de Arazon, or the Swede of Arazon. She was owned by Don Jacinto de Arazon and piloted by Don Juan de Arazon. El Sueco was a vessel of approximately 200 tons. She remained intact until she reached the shallows. She then smashed aground in 8 feet of water, bow to sea, stern to shore, with a portion of the ship continuing in closer to shore, disintegrating in the process. Our first site is the main ballast mound, but some of Stefan's shoreline bearings have changed, complicating his ability to position us over the wreck. Dan Baker volunteers for reconnaissance duty. Stefan tows him behind the boat in the general vicinity of the wreck. We move in a zigzag pattern for almost 10 minutes. Finally, Dan spots her. Florida wreck site 8MO132, her GPS coordinates are latitude 24 degrees 46.636 minutes north, longitude 080 degrees 53.367 minutes west. She's about 1,300 yards south of Conch Key and 900 yards 140 degrees southeast of Walker's Island. She's also 1 mile to the east of Hawks Cay Resort on Duck Key. After tossing Dan his gear, I waste no time in joining him below. We've got good viz on this normally murky site today. El Sueco carried king-size porcelain, animal hides, indigo, vanilla, and tobacco. Mexico minted 4 and 8 real silver cob coins dated 1720 to 1733, and newly minted pillar dollars were recovered from this site. Schools of porkfish, tang, mangrove snapper, and pairs of butterfly fish cloud the site. I've attracted the attention of the rather large 3.5-foot resident barracuda of El Sueco. My newfound buddy is going to guide us through the rest of the wreck. Many grouper are extremely territorial. This Nassau grouper stands his ground as I approach. Watch the rockhind exit his lair and warn me to go away. Grouper can lighten or darken their color dramatically. This Nassau is in his dark color phase. This clump of fire bricks at the Bureau of Archaeology in Tallahassee were part of the oven on El Sueco. Here is another clump of bricks from the oven that remains nearby the site. The ovens on these ships were primarily used for cooking in calm seas. Each ship carried livestock to butcher as needed. These ovens could also forge iron to make or repair metal tools and rigging components. Stefan has weighed anchor, and we are idling a few hundred yards toward Walker's Island to the second mount of El Sueco. Mound number 2 of El Sueco is a small area of sparsely scattered ballast. Most of the rock is in a 30-foot by 30-foot area, punctuated by sea whips and sea rods. There is another very small mound inshore of this site, but we'll leave that for another day. El Sueco was rediscovered in 1965 by treasure hunting legend and renowned author Marty Maylock and his associate Don Thomas. It's time to drop Dan and Stefan off in Layton and then head back to Fiesta Key to retrieve my boat. Back on the overseas highway, I head into the setting sun. The dive odyssey continues tomorrow. For anyone interested in shipwreck history, a trip to the Mel Fisher Maritime Heritage Society Museum is a must. A priceless wealth of educational information and shipwreck artifacts are preserved and displayed at the corner of Green and Whitehead Street in Old Town, Key West. Mel Fisher has dedicated his life to discovering, recovering, preserving, and displaying countless artifacts from shipwrecks of the Spanish plate fleets. Fabulous riches from the Nuestra Senora de Atocha of the 1622 Spanish treasure fleet, Mel's most famous find, are seen by thousands of visitors every year. Mel is the most famous of the dozens of independent salvors of the 1940s, 50s, and 60s, whose personal investment in time and money resulted in the discovery of all the wreck sites in this video. I salute these pioneer salvage heroes who took back from the ocean what man had lost centuries before. Mel is not only king of the treasure salvers, he is king of the Conch Republic as well. In honor of the dive odyssey, Mel dubbed me a Knight of the Conch Republic.
Are you ready for this?
Yes.
Okay, by the power bestowed upon me as king of the Conch Republic, I hereby dub thee knight. Everybody's got to call you sir now. You've just been nice.
Thank you, Captain Fisher. If you're ever in Key West, be sure to stop by Mel's Museum and Gift Shop and say hello to the king of the treasure salvers, Mel Fisher. I'm heading south on the overseas highway to Vaca Cut near mile marker 53 in Marathon. My friend Eddie Brusso and his pal Cookie are meeting me for a 2-wreck dive. We pick up speed as the 10-minute trip to Coffin's Patch begins. This area was named around the mid-1800s when an American steam sailing vessel crashed here, killing hundreds of people, thus Coffin's Patch. Coffin's Patch is a vast area, about 4 miles, 120 degrees southeast of the Vaca Cut head pin. Our first wreck site is not a classic shipwreck with the visual appeal of an intact ballast mound. The Coffin's Patch wreck trail begins at these GPS coordinates: latitude 24 degrees, 41.643 minutes north, longitude 080 degrees, 56.323 minutes west. This trail may be followed on a 282-degree northwest course for well over a mile toward West Turtle Shoal. This ship was buffeted along these 10 to 12-foot deep shallows, her hull grinding and smashing the bottom as she plowed shoreward. Small bits of wreckage are scattered over a vast area. She disintegrated slowly, piece by piece, stone by stone. This site is another shipwreck mystery. When first discovered in 1966 by Jack Stephanie, the Coffin's Patch Trail was thought to be that of the San Ignacio de Urquijo, an English-built ship of 292 tons and number 19 on the old chart. However, number 19 on the old chart is near a shoal that probably represents East Washerwoman, a patch reef near Marathon. It is highly probable that $30 million in gold and silver have yet to be discovered somewhere near present-day East Washerwoman Shoal. Now to the next theory. The Florida Bureau of Archaeological Research lists this site as 8MO137. Nicknamed the San Fernando, this Italian-built ship of 328 tons was listed as number 18. Her position on the old chart is closer to our location, but still a good distance from the position that would represent present-day Coffin's Patch. More than likely, the remains of the San Fernando lie undiscovered somewhere in the murky water to the south-southwest of Duck Key. Finally, in the 1970s, Stefan Sakura spent thousands of hours on the Coffin's Patch Trail. Stefan found numerous boxes of farming implements and military supplies. It seems improbable that a merchant vessel or King's Galleon, destined for Spain, would waste precious deck space carrying cargo that was readily available at home. It seems more likely that this is the wreck trail of El Situado La Floridana, a supply ship bound for St. Augustine. Only one person survived the wreck of La Floridana. Whatever this vessel's identity, there have been over 12,000 8-real Cobb coins recovered along this wreck trail. Innumerable artifacts, frozen in time beneath the sands of Coffin's Patch, were also recovered by modern salvors. What about the ghost ships of the 1733 Armada? The only ship to survive the 1733 hurricane and make it back to Cadiz, Spain, was Señor San Josef, nicknamed El Africa, a 500-ton Spanish-built ship. Lost and never found were Los Dolores, nicknamed the New London, a 296-ton English-built ship, and El Rosario, or the Rosary, a 205-ton French-built ship. Also, some accounts report over a dozen ships departed Havana with the Armada that were not recorded in the official list of vessels. Meet the man that taught me to navigate, my friend Finley Ricard. Finley started salvaging Spanish shipwrecks in the 1950s. Finley believes a 1733 ghost galleon lies offshore in the murky water within a few miles seaward of the Bahia Honda Bridge. Without a doubt, dozens of shipwrecks containing billions in treasure are cleverly concealed by the sands of time in the waters of the Florida Keys. I've saved the best for last. We're heading about 7 miles almost due west to the Mystery Galleon. We're passing over her now. The Mystery Galleon was a gigantic 650-ton man-of-war, possibly of Dutch origin. She probably went down around 1650. Her GPS coordinates are latitude 24 degrees 41.213 minutes north, longitude 081 degrees 02.415 minutes west. She's located in 10 feet of water on a patch reef, just over 2 miles from the shores of Marathon. When looking about 275 degrees west from the wreck site, East Sister Rock will appear to just touch Boot Key. She rests in the general area where number 19, the San Ignacio, is listed on the old chart. However, the San Ignacio is listed as Sumergido Ignacio, or Submerged Ignacio. The Mystery Galleon stayed intact after she grounded. She was well above the waterline, not submerged. Also, the granite ballast on this wreck has sharper edges than the round Portuguese river rock common on the Spanish 1733 wreck sites. Her truly impressive ballast mound is just over 100 feet long, 28 feet wide, and 8 to 10 feet tall. This would indicate a vessel of about 125 feet long and 35 feet wide. This view of the stern shows a recess that leads underneath the ship,
where you can slowly, very carefully, slide yourself in under the ballast pile, which I don't believe it exists anywhere in the world. You can see the ribs, you can see the top, upper deck, bilge deck, over your head.
Another good view of the ship's timbers may be observed by moving up the starboard side of the wreck. Here there are beams, stringers, and ceiling planks visible. The bow of the ship facing the shore is definitely worth exploring. Just under the ballast is a well-preserved ship's beam. I seem to have disturbed this shy porcupine fish. Here is the munitions magazine of this ship. An enormous amount of gunpowder was found on this site, indicating a military vessel. Also recovered here were 3/4-inch round shot and cannonballs weighing 9 to 18 pounds. Some of the cannonballs were stamped with an A, meaning they were manufactured in Holland. My friend Jerry Wilkinson displays an arquebus, a precursor to the modern rifle, used extensively in the 1600s. Dozens of these weapons were found in the munitions magazine of the Mystery Galleon. Another structural oddity of this wreck is the huge crack running from port to starboard near the stern. Fire bricks from the ship's galley pepper the top of the ballast mound. A rather large but friendly green moray eel lives in a recess on the port side of the wreck. I hope you enjoyed the show. Join us next time as we explore over 50 dive sites of the Upper Keys. For Florida Keys Dive Odyssey, this is Don Ferguson. The fabulous oil paintings and sketches featured throughout this video were created by my friend Bill Trotter. Bill has devoted a lifetime toward the recreation of seafaring history through his artistic endeavors. As the official artist for the United States Coast Guard, Bill has visited, documented, and painted every lighthouse in the Florida Keys, as well as close to 300 more navigational aids throughout the United States. Bill's masterfully executed works graphically illustrate man's ongoing battle with the elements of sea, wind, wave, and weather. Bill and his wife Frida live at the Lighthouse Maritime Studio in Jacksonville Beach, Florida.